Minneapolis state of mind, the city that I live in, everybody stays on the grind.
Yo, Twin Cities, living in Minnie, listening to Biggie. It was all a dream. Honestly, some probably thought that Christopher Michael Jensen was kidding starting out. Little did they know that he would be delivering that. Do you remember where you delivered that?
Well, that was actually a line from my last album, but I also rapped that on Sway in the Morning.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's a reference to that in the new record, A New Age. Shay was so impressed, not only by your t-shirt, which he also had a copy of the same t-shirt, but he said they were having a day party the following day, and he invited you to it. Did you go?
I actually didn't make it out to that. I looked into that, and that was a busy weekend because that was Sunset weekend. That was actually the first time that he had done his show from Minneapolis.
It was at Sunset, yeah? Yeah,
cool, because he's been hosting Sunset for a handful of years now. For people that don't know, he broadcasts a show on Sirius XM radio on Shade 45, which is a big hip hop channel, and he's just kind of like a legend from MTV and just a hip hop legend for the past probably about 30 years now.
One of your idols, as you tell him.
It was just kind of like a surreal experience because I remember going out that day to check that out, just to like be there and see it, and then I didn't even know that we were going to have the opportunity to actually rap on the air, because everybody that goes up there has 16-bar verse to spit, and so I had to kind of figure out which one I wanted to actually rap, and I'd put out my last album the night before, so it was kind of like it was like a crazy, got to plug it on the air and rap that verse, and
well, you plugged it once, and then he was so impressed with your 16 bars that he said, give him back the mic, let him play his record.
Right, that was a crazy experience. And like I said, that was the last album that I actually put out. That was 2014. For that album, I spent a lot of time making music videos
for every
song on the album, which took about 2.5 years.
Wow.
And then I kind of started getting into new material, so I'm excited to finally put out this new album. It's been a while.
Speaking of the previous album, we should also highlight that there were, how many tracks on that record?
13 songs.
Each produced by a different producer on the previous one.
Yeah, it was, that was kind of, once I got into it, I just thought that'd be kind of a cool thing to do, because I'm fortunate enough to know a lot of different people. Really talented producers, so that was kind of just a different, every track I just got a different producer for. So I got to work with a lot of great people.
And guests including Dem Atlas and Lydia Liza.
Yep, Dem Atlas, Lydia Liza, Ashley Sealer, North Star Wisdom. That album I got a really great response to. I've been kind of wanting to get back into working on new material, but there were like a lot of shows that we were booking and a lot of, like I said, the videos.
Yeah.
I went on a tour. So like when you're an independent artist, you obviously kind of dipping your hands in a lot of different things and have to kind of divide your attention a lot of different ways. So it's sort of hard to kind of just sit down and work on, the actual music a lot of times, because you're kind of your own manager, your own agent, your own booker, your own, you have to do all the networking and
the radio,
run social media, everything. So it's just kind of like I don't know. I was getting pulled a lot of different ways. So and I kind of just didn't want to like flood, the internet and just with song after song. I kind of wanted to push that album for a while. And a lot of people these days, it's kind of more just drop a song on SoundCloud every couple months. And I kind of wanted to just, after the body of work was done, I just wanted to like focus on that, and that was kind of the idea with the videos. It's like, let's keep, showing all these different songs and presenting them in different ways.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of something I wanted to do, and once I got done with that whole process, I kind of dove back into making stuff. So this new album's been about a year in the making. So.
Okay, and 16 tracks, and this time, in terms of the beats, you've got everyone from Wesley Opus, a few tracks, Soft Popcorn, who I was introduced to by you. I think they were playing at an event that you organised at Honey.
Yep, I've known those guys for a long time.
Shrimp Nose. Who were some of the other producers?
We have Andre Mariette on there. He actually helped me record a lot of the album.
That's the final track.
Yeah, he produced the final track on there,
which is great.
Thank you.
A really great close, a really great opener, and Silence into Sound too.
Thank you. Let's see who else we got on there. We got Gypto Knuckles. He's been pretty active, going all the way back to the 90s. Let's see who else. North Star Wisdom, who's also part of the group No Good Neighbors, who's featured on the album.
Acronym.
Acronym. Yeah, I've known him for a number of years. So it's a lot of people that I've known, and then kind of like some newer people that I've met. So I was trying to kind of get a mix of like, seeing what else was out there as far as like people that I hadn't worked with before, and kind of working with some old favorites. So
absolutely,
yeah,
and including EJ. Nathan Ajua,
yes,
who happened, or maybe not happened, who also performed on Shay in the Morning, on the same day as you, and Shay was equally impressed with him, and Slim Chance too, from Crunchy Kids. One of the things that you did when you were promoting the previous record is you came on Back to the City, and one of the tracks on it, Hit 'Em With the Rap, you performed with Martin Dosh on drums, and John Davis, who we both know initially from Honey Ghost Band, on the bass. I was just so glad that they had those guests on the same episode, because I think the willingness to collaborate with a broad range of people, to experiment with different styles, even within hip hop, you kind of wear on your sleeves.
I hit 'em with a little bit of this and then I hit 'em with a little bit of that. I hit 'em with a little bit of this and then I hit 'em with a little bit of that. I hit 'em with a little bit of this and then I hit 'em with a little bit of that. I hit 'em with a little bit of this and then I hit 'em with the rap.
To quote the opening track on your first official debut, There's Meaning Underground, you kind of highlight there the interest in the mainstream and the underground. That same song opens in South Minneapolis, born and raised, on Nintendo, is where I spent most of my
play
days.
off the Will Smith lyric.
Of course, and so just the willingness to kind of do something like that, whilst also, you are underground. You've introduced me, for one, and many other people to so many a breadth of artists.
Well, John Davis too, like you said, that who was on the show that same day, also runs sound there and has pretty much since the beginning. So, there's a lot of people just kind of in the community that I've known for a long time now, that we've kind of been building with. And with Honey too, like that's just like a spot that's kind of always been really, I guess, instrumental in helping us kind of build up our careers, because they've always been so gracious with just letting us kind of do what we want to do. Throwing like events and benefits and release shows and residencies. So it's just been kind of nice to sort of have a place to kind of build this up and have people that have been so supportive of us. So I'm looking forward to the show quite a bit. We got some special stuff planned that we're trying to work on, kind of new presentation for the live show.
Oh, cool. So 2008, you're saying, is roughly when Honey...
I think, it's been about almost 10 years now.
And some 8 years before then, when you were 13, is when you embarked on your journey into rap. And is it around about that same time that you were a wrestler?
Yes.
There's a reference to wrestling on the new record.
Yeah, I was a
veteran.
That was kind of my sport when I was younger. I was a wrestler. I think I started wrestling in kindergarten. My dad was like a wrestling coach. So that was kind of one of the things that I did through, preschool, from like kindergarten through high school.
There's a reference to it in Good Days Like O'Shea.
Yes, that was a...
back in high school, a veteran wrestler.
I was a letteran as a wrestler. I got my Letterman jacket, and it was kind of I don't know, kind of one of my before I graduated, it was kind of a big focus in school, was just kind of wrestling practice, and kind of I don't know. I just kind of tried to bring a little bit of a biography into the music a little bit there with that.
What was it? Was there a decisive shift away from that to rapping? And what does that mean for you?
That was just a
biographical.
That was just kind of, it was just like a tidbit about me. I mean, that was, like I said, I kind of growing up, like a lot of my interests were music and art, and then I was really into wrestling.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I mean, I was wrestling since kindergarten. Didn't start rapping till 13, so I mean that was about 7th grade. I got into rapping, and but before that, I was always just kind of into music in general. I didn't really get into hip hop till 2000. So before that, it was just kind of like I used to listen to like electronic music when I was younger, and just like a lot of like alternative rock radio, and but yeah, hip hop was kind of what. At that age, just you get into something new and you wanted to try it, and I just kind of started throwing myself into it more and more. My brother actually was the one that kind of got me into that, which I talk about on the song on the album Adventures in Hip Hop, which kind of tells
Yep.
my story from the start, kind of him just driving around the city. This is like around the time that Napster was happening, so everybody was it was really easy to get music that you didn't necessarily go out and buy.
Yeah.
So like on our family computer, we had my brother had like folders of just all these MP3s of different acts that I had never heard of, and so I just kind of started getting like bombarded with all these different various artists and albums, and so it just was kind of fascinating to me to kind of like dip into all these different things going on, and we kind of spent a lot of time buying old used records and just kind of really getting into that. And so at the same time we were kind of practicing rapping, and used to not be very good, but you know, over time.
Did your brother continue go on to create music?
Because he's actually on the album also. He's Model Citizen. Yeah, I mean, he rapped back then as well. He used to also be he was in a hardcore band when he was younger. So I mean, he always kind of dabbled with it. He didn't necessarily hit it the same way that I did. And then he got married, had kids, you know, just had various things going on. So we just kind of had different paths, sort of. So he's always done it, and you know, he's always working on stuff on the side.
Yeah.
But he's never been able to pursue it the same way.
Yeah.
That I was. But yeah, I definitely have to credit him for kind of helping set this all off. So,
Oh, great. So he's on the track Ease Up on him.
yes.
Yes,
Yep.
I'm glad that has he collaborated with you on any other?
Yeah,
Any other times?
he's been on a few. He was on my, like I said, my first album, There's Meaning Underground. He was on Chris Tape Volumes 1 and 2. So yeah, we've collaborated a handful of times, and we've talked about possibly doing projects and whatnot. But I mean, like I said, being so busy in the scene, a lot of times you're talking about trying to embark on all these different side projects and EPs and stuff, and a lot of times it's kind of hard to just sit down and hash it out because
Yeah.
you're always getting pulled in so many different directions. But I'm hoping to try to, now that this album's done, putting it out, to kind of like explore different things for the next step. But kind of just focusing on this right now.
So what manner of exploration do you have in mind?
Sky's the limit right now. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, I think with this album, that was kind of with the title "A New Age." You know, I just turned 30 years old, so I'm kind of looking at different. It's sort of like a new frontier now. It's like, all right, because that was part of it, was like a new age, literally. Like I'm 30 now. And
Yes.
It's like a new age, just in terms of the world and politics, because it's a very political album too.
It is.
And then
Very timely. There's lots of extremely contemporary references.
Yes.
At what stage did you? Some of it is so contemporary that I think, you know, with certain tracks, it must have been just before sending the mixes off for mastering. So
Yeah.
that
Actually,
maybe there
very
was.
true.
So are there any particular moments where, in light of the
Well, like I said, this album has been about a year, almost exactly. I think I started recording it in April of 2016. So, and I'm putting it out in now April of this year. So it's over the past year, obviously, as you know, a lot of crazy stuff going on in the country with Trump, and so that was just kind of heavy on my mind, and so we talked. I mean, I kind of delved into, and I usually tend to delve into politics anyway on my albums, but so there was already some material that was recorded pre-election, just kind of a lot of the craziness going on, and then it was after the election. I think I had about 1 or 2 tracks kind of left to finish off. So the song Post-Truth World, I think, was the last song that I actually wrote, that we actually just finished fairly recently. So that was, I think that and Ease Up on Them were kind of the last couple songs that was it was kind of very topical in terms of with the election and stuff. But
I mean, Post-Truth World has the lines, irrationalities lead to casualties from normalizing abnormalities, and it's fucked up. It's fucked up, isn't it, how even friends and families get caught up in this shit. So I think that really, in just a few lines, kind of encapsulates a lot of your thoughts about the situation. You must be quite proud, especially you must have done it very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of felt like, I think there was a lot of things on the album that I wanted to say pre-election, probably thinking that Trump was going to lose, and when he won, it was like it kind of made some of the other stuff that we'd done more topical in a way, because it seemed even more immediate. Some of like the just being fed up with things going on already, and so I just kind of felt like I needed something that was a little bit more my reaction.
Yeah.
Post November 8th.
Ease up on you were saying is that and
Because I think
Post Truth World the two most recent.
Ease Up on him, I think, was pretty much done, and then I think we actually hadn't recorded it yet, so we switched a couple of lines around because it was we kind of felt like we wanted to kind of come out hard hitting on that one. But
so this line I'm about to read, is this pre or post election? Like a right wing's excuses. I really like to punch Donald Trump until his mug looks like Ted Cruz's.
That was actually pre-election, but it felt even more timely after the election.
That's a good line.
Yeah.
A lot of people can relate.
Yeah. Yes.
So clearly there is this very timely, very politically engaged component of the record, and we'll dig into that a bit more later. But it's interesting how that sits alongside something else that we've already come upon, which is the autobiographical component.
Yep.
And it's interesting, and that comes together in a new age. So it's a new age for you. You have a new age. It's a big number. It's like a significant shift from the number 29 to the number 30.
Yep.
But then also we have Our Brave New World, or obviously sarcastically, the new age of the post-truth world, for example.
Yep.
So how consciously were you interweaving those two components, the autobiographical and the political?
I think I just felt like with all my music, and every time I kind of start a new album, I kind of look at like, okay, what do I want to say? And usually I try to cover a lot of different facets of, either my personality, personal life, things going on with politics, things going on with hip hop. So it's always kind of like a conscious effort going into making anything that I do. But I think with this too, kind of, because I felt like with CM Cool J, that was sort of my proudest work to date. And like I said, with doing all the videos and just kind of feeling the best about just the way that we recorded it, and I just felt like it was like proud to say that I felt like it was at a fairly high standard that I was really happy with.
Oh, sway, let's say.
Yeah. So with this next album, I kind of felt like, okay, well, what am I gonna do now? Because I didn't know exactly. I kind of wanted to do something a little bit bigger, so I wanted to do, I guess, like I said, work with more people that I hadn't, maybe do a handful of more tracks. Because initially, I think I had toyed with the idea of maybe putting out like an EP, or maybe just being, just putting out songs, kind of just more single-driven, since that's kind of the way that the industry's kind of moving.
You could have been seen to have transitioned to that by putting out each of the videos too. You could have.
Well, yeah, and I think to a lot of people with that was, if you had never heard CM Cool J, you might have just thought, oh, this is a new single, even though some of the videos were for songs that had been completed and released 2 years prior.
Yeah.
But I just kind of, I'm very album oriented the way I think, and just in terms of like, well, if I make this, I think, okay, well, I didn't say everything that I want to say maybe on this song, so I want to do it on this, and it kind of helps me organize where I put everything. Yeah. So as I start kind of getting into the album, and I start, kind of thinking about, okay, well, I've done a lot of biographical things, but now I'm really pissed off about this thing that just happened in the news, and I feel like I want to speak on it. So I try to kind of encapsulate a lot of things that have been going on in my life and that I've been thinking about, just kind of all the way up till about the deadline. Yes. So with this album, like I said, with turning 30, there was a lot of just kind of life changes and just thinking about my future, and just, the life of like a, independent artist is pretty uphill, and just financial woes and just like my living situation and just relationships with people. So it was kind of a lot of things that were weighing heavily on my mind. And I think, turning 30 literally the same month that we got a new president elected, and then also knowing that my album was almost done, I just was kind of like, all right, there's going to be kind of like a new shift for me in the coming year. Yeah. So I just kind of felt like A New Age was sort of the perfect.
That's how it got its title. At that stage, you were already planning, sitting on this collection of songs, to put them out as a record, as an LP, as opposed to an EP and maybe 2 EPs.
Just random song, yeah.
Yeah, and it seems like a part of the rationale is because you want to do justice to the full breadth of your experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is interesting, the combination of breadth and also your personal experience, because you don't have a moniker, you don't,
right.
you know, you're not, you
no,
don't have like
pseudonym or something.
Like, exactly.
Yeah.
No Slim Shady or,
right.
or anything like that.
Right.
That's highlighted on the bio. Christopher Michael Jensen has no alias. He lacks a fake persona.
Right.
His music tackles everyday struggles, relationships, politics, and his own personal demons.
Right.
Hence, we find you, for example, in Powder Keg,
Yep.
under the warmth of a shower head, isolated. I really love the sense of location that we get there. I think in large part due to Shrimp Nose's production, this sense of isolation, and this we almost feel like we're in a house with no other people in, and there's just you in the shower.
Loves me not, plucking petals in a flower bed, holding myself beneath the warmth of a shower head. Anxiety.
How did you work with the various producers to create a coherent sense of shifting between the isolated and the intensely public?
Well, I think just in general, like I don't necessarily want just one type of vibe on the album. So because of all these producers, I know that they're, I mean, a lot of them are very versatile. Andre Marriott's a very versatile producer. Shrimp Nose is a very versatile producer. So, and you know, with Shrimp Nose specifically, like you're talking about Powder Keg, you know, when he's showing me, you know, maybe beats or fragments of beats that are not done, or you know, a lot of times that gives like a good opportunity to build and kind of see, okay, I like the way that you looped or chopped this, so how can we build on that? Where can we go with this?
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun too. I mean, there is a collaborative process in it where a lot of times I am sitting down with the producer and kind of, you know, they might have like sort of a skeleton of the beat, or you know, maybe like the gist of the beat is there, but it's not fully fleshed out yet, and then we can kind of sit in there and, you know, start moving instrumentation around, sort of flipping it up, and then a lot of times I'll write to the beat, sometimes even record it, and then we'll start changing it around what I did, just to kind of keep building the track, which in some ways is somewhat different than the way I used to work, where a lot of times whatever a track was maybe is what it stayed.
There's a really well integrated moment where you have a line about a different sample of human nature, I think, and then there is a sample of
human nature by Michael Jackson. Yeah, and that's actually it's a reference to it's almost like a triple meaning in that, because that's actually a reference to a song by Nas from Illmatic, where he samples the song Human Nature, and so then we use also the original song that he sampled for that, and so it's just kind of a
so you said triple,
because I say
meaning.
I think the line is my brain stem is half man, half amazing, a different sample of human nature. So it's like a metaphor, where like I'm a different sample of human nature.
Yes.
Half man amazing is a line from the Nas song where he samples human nature.
Yeah.
So then we drop the human nature song in there. So
This is a different sample of human nature.
Yeah. So and it's a different. Yeah. So that was sort of the
yeah.
And that was an example actually where I had that line on that original beat that North Star Wisdom produced, and so while we were working on fleshing the beat out, we got the idea that we should just drop the song in.
Absolutely.
So it's just things like that kind of just little things that I feel like kind of enrich it more. And so those are a lot of things that I try to think about. And that's also kind of why a lot of times I kind of work slowly with things, because there are a lot of people that will just hear a beat, get in the studio with the producer, kind of come up with some lyrics and lay it down. And I try to sit on things just to kind of see how we can build them, how we can develop them over time. Because a lot of these songs I've been sitting with for just several months, and they've been fine-tuned even after we recorded them. Yeah. So in the end, I hope that once we hit the deadline before everything needs to get sent out, it's like, okay, we've thoroughly poured into all these different tracks and thoroughly developed them, and fine-tune them and tweak them.
Yeah.
The mixing and the writing and the production. So.
Yeah, well, having heard these mixes, it seems like you have. I think that moment is indicative. You said there's like 3 levels of meaning, so it's highly cerebral because people who can make those connections can appreciate, like on a intellectual level, oh, this is what an interesting thing is going on.
Kind of
here.
layering it. Yep.
But then sonically, for people who, I mean, that sample is well integrated. It works at that moment in the song, and I think that's representative of a lot that's going on.
On arrival, nose full of yay and the blunt in the pie hole.
You should pack it up, man. Who could blame ya? You're just another flash in the pan, like lewd behavior. My brainstem is half man, half amazing, a different sample of human nature.
So there's the sample kind of shouts out to that song, of course. There's a reference to the Predator as well at another moment. This is in.
Good Days Like O'Shea, yeah, that was a Predator, the Ice Cube album. Yeah, because O'Shea Jackson, that was Ice Cube's birth name.
Yeah, so that's the 3rd solo album, I think, from Ice Cube.
Yes, I believe so, yeah.
Why does that get a shout out? What's the significance of that particular record to you?
That was just, that was just kind of just like a sort of a punchline, just kind of referencing the song "It Was a Good Day," which is just kind of a classic hip hop single.
Yeah.
Because I just kind of being such like a hip hop fanatic, hip hop head, I always try to like work in references to just music that I kind of grew up on and just peppering it. I mean, that's going on in like Adventures in Hip Hop. I've done that a lot.
I'll reminisce for a spell. He's part of my bio, a young man, but a while since I started to rhyme though. Looking back to the early years of Napster, downloading some B-sides by Marshall Mathers, watching.
Always reading about hip hop, always kind of spending time organizing my iTunes library and reading retrospectives. I'm always just kind of thinking about the timeline of hip hop. That's how my mind kind of works. I'm just sort of like I tend to have like sort of like an encyclopedic knowledge about things that I get fanatical about. So it's, a lot of times that's just kind of things that I like to drop in for like the person that's maybe not super into hip hop or a lot of those lines might go over your head, but for like the kind of like the true hip hop heads that are super up on that kind of stuff. Hopefully, exactly.
But it seems like a particularly appropriate album to reference because it came out in '92 and it makes reference to the LA riots. So like your new record, it will please like a mainstream audience. Yeah. It's got the song "It Was a Good Day" that the title of your song is referencing, but then at the same time it has that political engagement and it does challenge the status quo as well. So you were talking about, so we've got this interesting combination of breadth of all hip hop. You're making references to lots of different styles of hip hop, lots of different broad range of different records, and there's the full breadth of your human experience too, and you're making the conscious decision not to put on a particular persona.
Right.
When CM Cool J came out, Reviler.org said that what's great about Chris is that with each release, he raps with a bit more confidence, and vocally he raps very conversationally with almost a cynic twist. And I found that interesting, this almost cynic twist. Cynicism is a term that comes up a fair amount in the record. You've got a few different statements that you're making. You're saying a record needs to make a statement. Are you consciously making a statement about cynicism, especially given that Reviler was saying that you almost had a cynic twist?
Well, I think just kind of, like I said, going back to the getting older, as you get older, you tend to
become a cynic.
Cynical, yeah.
The passion.
And kind of going back to also to like the name of the album, A New Age. It's a new age, not just in my life and in politics. It's kind of a new age just in hip hop and music, and just kind of in art. And so I think a lot of it. Because a lot of things I talk about on this album too is sort of like the state of hip hop and just kind of figuring out where I am, kind of the things that I sort of wrestle with, trying to make it as an artist and kind of like a changing landscape, and so that you can it can kind of make you sort of bitter and cynical as you get sort of old and jaded, and you know, so trying not to completely succumb and fall under the weight of that, but also having done this now for, you know, about 17 years, and like I said, kind of delving into like the history of hip hop and just kind of knowing the history of everything that's kind of come before, and being and having that have such an impact on me. You know, you do get kind of fed up with a lot of things going on, and a lot of trends, and you know, just kind of a lot of you know, whack things that you see going on. So you do kind of want to comment on that and kind of make your statement and just put your 2 cents in about that. So I think, you know, there can be some cynicism that comes with that. You know, I think with hip hop today, I think, you know, there's a lot of stuff that I definitely do like and gravitate towards, and still feel very strongly about, and there's a lot of things that I don't. And so just with the craft of rapping, you know, I spend a lot of time with the writing and the lyricism, and that's something that in a lot of pockets of hip hop can get lost. I think there needs to be more of a focus a lot of times with people that are truly doing innovative things, and people that actually like really care about the craft. Of
almost redirecting attention from the causes for the, you know, the reasons that we might become cynical to the reasons why we might be hopeful, whether it's about the state of hip hop or about the state of
the world.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's, you know, it's hopefully as you get older, you can. I feel like as you get older, and not just with music, but just in, I mean, you should become wiser. You should be getting better at what you do. You should be leveling up, and so that's just kind of, and that's part of kind of going back to just the constant struggle. Is like, if, you know, when you're an independent artist and you're not, you know, maybe reaching the plateaus that you feel that you should be, or maybe that you think that you deserve. You know, that can be kind of a burden, and so you're trying to constantly figure out how to overcome that. You know, the same goes for your personal life. When you're not making the kind of money you are, you're not in the kind of relationships you would like to be. You're not doing as well at your job. You know, and then also just with, you know, being involved with social causes that I believe in, and activism and those types of things. It's like when you see the world kind of take such a step back. Yeah. Like it is. It's just like, it kind of is deflating. So it's like you're trying to kind of rally behind all these things that you believe in, like art and the kind of political causes you believe in. And it, you know, to kind of see things sort of regress, it can be kind of, there's sort of like a tension there.
To contextualize and personalize what you were just saying, Rap for Life is a benefit series that, alongside Ashley Seeler, you spearheaded. Does that continue? Is that in the present?
I think because so much of what I like to do with music, you know, is so, or can be so politically motivated. There's a lot of that in the music. I mean, in the scene, kind of knowing like the power that the community can have when it comes together.
Raising thousands of dollars, for example, as you did with Rap for Life.
With Rap for Life, that was the original idea behind that was I mean, the first Rap for Life, it was literally, I mean, the Rap for Life was literally, it was a rap show raising awareness about suicide prevention. Yeah. And trying to help with that cause. So, I mean, it was literally, we were rapping to try to, you know, help save people's lives, so to speak. And
that was the first of a number of life and death situations that you presented.
Initially, it was a one-off show that we were doing to help raise awareness about that cause. Yeah. And when that was very successful, we kind of started finding other causes that weren't necessarily strictly about suicide, but we you know, just other causes that we believed in, like domestic abuse, you know, awareness, and
chemical dependency,
and
mental health at-risk youth.
Exactly. So like with that, I've always felt like the kind of the synthesis of the community and art and music can go very well with kind of like a more politically active, socially active component. So, you know, it's been a couple years since we've specifically done a Rap for Life show, but I've been involved with other causes. There's definitely the doors open to do another Rap for Life in the future. I'm I'm actually organizing a benefit right now. So that there's different things that I'm trying to do, and especially now, like I said, in this kind of political landscape where a lot of organizations are kind of being defunded. You know, there's kind of more of a need now, you know, maybe more than ever, for people that, you know, it's like if we don't actively stay involved with these things, they're going to keep getting eroded away and swept under the rug and destroyed, like literally. So it's kind of a time to be diligent,
to rally despite the despair that, as someone who's been so politically engaged before, it would make sense that you would be despairing. Yeah, and there are certain songs, especially near the end of the record, even just with the titles. The final track is called "Wilted Hope." That seems to be more of a autobiographical, personal one. The ups and downs that you refer to with the metaphor of the Konami code.
Yes,
it's great. You and POS have that in common. He makes references to the Konami code in the recent Doomtree song, I believe.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
I didn't think about that. Yeah,
but they seem to. That's like personal ups and downs. I think you make references to hard times, like a cafe on Riverside that you've experienced.
That's a reference that, unless you were from here, probably would also go over here.
Yeah. One of a number. There's also Honey doesn't get referenced as such, but Ginger Hop, which is upstairs at Honey. You can get a burger at Ginger Hop, and you can probably take it down to Honey if you want to when you're at the show. The said Ginger Hop burger gets a shout out.
Bruce Lee burger. That's my go-to favorite. Is the Bruce Lee burger.
Yeah, it's as good if you have that burger. It's almost as good a feeling, perhaps, as performing at the 7th Street entry or the Amsterdam with some of your heroes.
Went through hard times like the cafe on Riverside, boggling to fathom where I'll end up when I'm 65.
Winning crowds at 7th Street, Amsterdam, and Triple Rock tastes good as a Bruce Lee burger at Ginger Hop. So.
Yeah, there you go. Comes to Honey.
Revelations trapped behind the writer's block, looking for a spark to ignite them like a lightning rod.
How comfortable would you be with being characterized as a cynic? Because I said that Reviler praised you on the almost cynic twist, and yet in the record, there's picking up on some of the other lyrics. I think this is in Sound the Horns. Correct me if I'm wrong. Cynicism is a symptom of the system.
I think that's on Post-Truth World.
That's in Post-Truth World. Okay, and then can we be less cynical, or is the struggle cyclical?
Too cyclical. Yeah. I think, well, with that line, I know a lot of people that because the state of the world and social causes and the state of politics kind of weighs so heavily on them, it can kind of break you.
Again, feeling like you're failing, trailing, falling down behind the rest.
I don't want to fall into that trap where everything gets looked at through the most cynical lens, where everything is, every interpretation of everything that happens always has to just be the most negative perception of it. Like, obviously there's a lot of negative things that happen, but it's kind of how you react to that I think is what's going to be key.
Yeah, you can provide reminders of that through your music and instances of that your action.
And I think that was sort of it was sort of like this kind of dialogue with myself and with people. It's like, well, can we be less cynical, or is the struggle too cyclical? Like, is this just going to keep happening?
Yeah.
It's like, how many times do you try to be positive and just kind of keep fighting before you just kind of like, well, I give up. So it's sort of like trying not to, but at the same time kind of being aware, like, well, why does this keep happening? What do we have to do? And kind of on Post-Truth World, when I talk about cynicism, it's a symptom of the system. It's like you become that way because a lot of times because of the way things are. Like, you don't necessarily want to become that way, but just being a victim of just various institutions in the world can really tear you down. And it can be hard to kind of rise above that and actually not let that happen or to change it.
And you recognize in the record illusion weighing down even or especially on the minds of revolutionaries. So again, if you're in close contact with a lot of the people who are most politically active in the music scene, putting on these benefits and stuff, it must, just witnessing the, these people who have been for so long, driving progress. like just the personal. It's interesting how this record takes a moment to just focus on the personal component. Just imagine being one of those individuals, or you are one of those individuals.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people in the scene, you know, that are even, you know, a lot more active on the ground level than I mean, I know people that, you know, literally are working for, you know, activist organizations.
Yeah, Tony the Scribe.
Tony the Scribe, definitely. Yep. You know, Guante.
Yep.
People that are, you know, a lot of times like on the front lines of a lot of these protests, and I've been involved with some of that and seen. I think when you're around that kind of atmosphere directly all day, every day, and you're involved in, you know, the planning of a lot of those protests and a lot of those actions, and you know, it can kind of it's being active can kind of you sort of have to remind yourself that you need to kind of take moments to take care of yourself too, because I think that's another thing that a lot of activists sometimes can succumb to is when you're trying to put your all into things so much, and arguing with people and pushing for legislation. It's hard sometimes to kind of, you know, maybe find enjoyment in life, or you know, it can kind of, your mental state kind of get very depressed and very, you know, it can take a lot out of you. I know, I think that's how a lot of the country was feeling, even if you weren't a super politically active person or even consider yourself a political person after the election. I think there was a lot of people that, even if you didn't follow politics generally, you know I saw people that don't even seem like political people all of a sudden being like, well, I didn't think it would get this bad. I didn't think that something like this could even happen. So I think for a lot of people that have been involved in politics pre-Trump, before all that were involved, I think, you know, a lot of them were already struggling just with, you know, it's like seeing everything going on, and then to see it get to that level, it's like, well, now it's like, you know, we've been trying to weather the storm forever, and now it's gotten to this level, and so and I think that's, I guess, the only silver lining, because I think now it's become almost, you can't ignore it.
Absolutely.
And I think because the rest of the country maybe is starting to get to that awareness where, like, oh shit, like, this is how bad. I think maybe that can help alleviate some tension with people that have been so active, is that now there's other people pitching in to kind of help. You know, you kind of saw it with like the Women's March, people that generally speaking wouldn't, you know, they probably weren't out there marching. No, they certainly weren't. With how much, obviously, how many more people were at that march than at previous marches. Right. Clearly, there were new people. And I think that, you know, that was a source of frustration for a lot of people too, because, you know, a lot of people were like, well, where were you when Black Lives Matter was marching? It's like, so hopefully now, I would hope that people that are getting involved now need to realize that we need to get involved with all these causes all the time. It can't just be like you know, it can't be like a just once in a while thing. We all have to be kind of diligent consistently. You know, it can't, and it certainly can't even be. I think a lot of people even sat out the election last time, maybe either just thinking Hillary was going to win, or just not caring. And I think that,
or being British.
And I think that maybe some people even thought that, okay, well, you know, we don't like these politicians, but everything will be the same. I think we're kind of starting to see now how bad things can be if you don't take action.
Absolutely, yeah. You were saying, even or especially for activists, the need to kind of focus on enjoyment. I think is what
self-care.
Self-care, yeah. That's actually something that I referenced Tony the Scribe. That's something that Tony's been quite public about recently. Tony being someone, you know, with what he does for Minnesota neighborhoods organizing for change, and as an activist more generally, is someone who I look up to, and I find it really interesting and inspiring that he would also be as open about the need for self-care. So focusing on what you're doing, there are moments where you're self-assured and confrontational, and the conclusion that you've been expressing just now, like, we really need to rally, we really need to act now.
Right.
There's no excuse not to. That's what's coming through. And then there are other moments where you're grappling with the sense of doubt and highlighting your own battles and need to focus on self-care.
Well, I think a lot of times too, if you're constantly, you know, kind of waging a war with the outside world, you're sometimes being distracted from kind of what your own,
the work that you need to do on yourself.
But you know, your own mental health, your own personal struggles, you know, away from what's going on outside. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like it can be hard to try to stay active, try to stay diligent, keep up on the news, putting yourself out there when at the same time there's so many things that you're not taking care of. And I think that's sometimes how people burn out, is that they just, there's nothing left of themselves to give, so they, you know, and
Lives We Lead is a song that deals with this, I think.
Plans. Clairvoyancy can provide buoyancy when sinking in the darkness like you're swimming through an oil leak. Cause it's just gasoline for the funnel, and heart muscles grow stronger every struggle. It gets kind of blurry.
I do really feel like, and I guess the music scene, I think, has been this for a lot of people. I think a lot of people, they don't know how to deal with a lot of things in their life, or they don't necessarily have a refuge away from their own problems. Sometimes certain topics get approached with such a fervor that it can be hard to take a step back and maybe try to like figure out a different way to approach things. So it's always kind of like a constant development of what is the best way to approach this issue, what's the best way to talk to people, what's the best way to do things. And sometimes people on the other side don't understand that, and they think that, you know, oh, you're only doing this, like, you know, you're not protesting the right way. And I think those people don't understand either. So it is a lot of trying to figure out what's the best way we can build within these movements, what's the best way we can help change minds, what's the best way that we can, you know, there's a lot of tension going on.
Yeah, I like the emphasis on we, and that also happens in Lives We Lead. I think each of the words in that title are equally important. So there's a focus on lives, like on the full life. On we, it's, you know, we're in this community, but there are isolated lives within the community. And leading, you know, that's an active thing. To lead a life is active, where you could be more passive, and you, even in the lyrics, you highlight how these refuges you were just talking about, there's references in the lyrics to people turning to drugs, people turning to fabricating this illusion of their life on social media, say.
I mean, fabricating their own life or fabricating what the world is.
Right.
I think that's kind of the whole post-truth world that we're in now, is that people have such a skewed perspective of what is actually going on that, you know, that's why it can be hard to reach those people. Because, you know, if you spend time out in the suburbs talking to people, a lot of people that I've been around that you know, you're not necessarily friends with them, you start a conversation about current events and you realize that the way they perceive everything is so skewed and weird.
You don't know where to start.
And it's like, yeah, you don't even, I mean, and I think, and I know some of those people have even come into the scene or gotten into music, and they approach it in such a different way because they're not necessarily at either a mental maturity to understand certain political philosophies, that it can be, I think sometimes that can fall on deaf ears. But I would also hope that maybe those people can, maybe music can be like the spark that sort of gets like a conversation going for those people. I know for me personally, growing up kind of in an environment that I was, you know, I went to like a Lutheran school and just kind of, you know, there's a certain conservative atmosphere in there that sort of affected how I thought.
Look into my lens as the record playing music spins, reflecting visions of a former Lutheran. The projections pretend if it blurs the view within. Plenty lessons you can get when you're pressing, you turn into your friends.
When you're young, you know, there's a lot of ignorance that you just, some people grow out of, some people don't. And I think that, you know, music and certain people in my life and just kind of slowly getting out of that environment, kind of, it slowly kind of changed the way that I thought about things. And I've kind of noticed that in some people too that have kind of entered into the scene also, where going to different events, talking to certain people, they've sort of evolved. And I think that's important too. I think it's important that, especially with like younger people, it's like hopefully they can be exposed to some of these things and kind of, I guess the real truth about the world and different people and different cultures, and that can kind of be exposed to them.
Yeah.
You know, I think hip hop for a lot of white kids, especially, like that's kind of their first view of a world that's not this lily white kind of framework that they maybe grew up in or imagined, and I think that can hopefully be like the trigger that kind of opens them up to a new world.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So the hip hop music that they turn to as part of their lifestyle ends up being a window into broadening their horizon.
You know, maybe maybe you hear a song from Talib Kweli or something, and you kind of start understanding, okay, there's something going on in certain African American communities that I had no idea about. And if you hear just one song, that's probably not. But if you continue to listen to the music and you're seeing there's this whole other thing going on, it might make you question something that you were taught when you were younger.
Yeah.
And then it actually, when you have a physical community that you can go to at shows, and thankfully in Minneapolis especially, we have a lot of activism and art kind of crossing over.
Absolutely.
You might be able to get involved with that, and you start to do more research about certain issues or certain topics, and you start to understand the intricacies of how for instance, like the Black Lives Matter movement works, or you start to understand the intricacies of how political protesting works and the effectiveness it can have, and you start to learn about the push for the $15 minimum wage, and just things that you maybe had no conception of, or you had a very skewed perception of prior to that.
Yeah.
And so that is something that I've been very pleased to see, is that there's been a lot of people in the community that have been very adamant about putting those issues front and center on the table, and I hope that more people kind of start to gravitate towards those and embrace those things as it becomes pushed to the forefront.
And that's something that you're doing, or that you found yourself doing, perhaps through becoming more integrated into the scene. Hip hop saved your life is something that you claim in Adventures in Hip Hop on the record.
Right.
To what extent? And it seems it saves your life insofar as it gives you drive. There are references in that song and other songs to. You were saying when you were at college, because you have a degree in English. Yeah, so but you refer in the record to like a period of depression, and whilst you're teaching Shakespeare,
right,
you're in the class writing lyrics.
Yep.
I've been both the teacher and the lyric writer. I can relate. But to what extent has hip hop saved your life? Not only in this kind of personal way, giving you drive, giving you focus, but also, can you empathize? Can you relate to the kind of ostrich in the sand?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think
position. Were you saved from? I think closed-minded.
I think, yeah. I mean, I think, hip hop was kind of it was something that as I got more and more into it, it kind of gave me. It was one of like those things that just sort of like became your thing. You know what I mean? Like, I think for a lot of kids, they maybe get into punk music when they're a teenager, or they get into. You
were into drawing when you were much younger.
I've always been into art and into, I guess, entertainment, pop culture type of things. And I think with hip hop, there were so many things about it that just intrigued me, just in terms of musically. I felt like you could do anything with it, because you could sample from any source, and there was so much words in it, so you could. The songwriting style of a hip-hop song versus maybe a rock song, it's not as minimalist, so you can reference all these different things. There's so much more room to kind of explore different topics, even within the same song. A lot of songs can be stream of conscious. So a lot of those things appealed to me and gave me something to be very into. And then as I got older, I think with various hip hop that I was into, it's like, yeah, you do learn some things, or okay, maybe you do have ignorant views about this, but that when Bill O'Reilly talks about hip hop, because you're so invested in hip hop, okay, well, I know you're wrong about that, even if I don't know a whole lot about some of these other things that you're talking about. Once I went to college, I got more, I guess, became more politically aware, as a lot of people do, obviously. And certain people that I knew were more heavily involved in activism, and so once I graduated college, started getting more into actually doing shows in the scene, meeting more people, just growing as a person, as we all do. It's like a lot of these things that just kind of they started aligning. It's like, well, I'm very into politics, I'm very into hip hop, I'm meeting all these people, I'm starting to book shows. You know, let's start combining all these things. And I think that just gave me more of like a drive.
Yeah.
It felt like more of a purpose. And I just, because I started meeting so many people, like, it, you know, it drastically improved my like social life, my personal life, just some of the relationships that I was making and having with people. So I think just in all those different facets, it kind of just gave me, it just, like I said, it gave me like a purpose. It gave me, it kind of helped forge my identity, like, and it kind of allowed me to kind of implement all these interests that I'm into, with politics, with music, with art, with just all these different things. It kind of gave me an outlet for it. And I think that I've kind of seen the difference with a lot of people I know in my circle, where it was kind of almost like a domino effect. Like once we started doing these things and kind of started bringing more people into the fold, like then you could see that their lives started to change. And, and I know, I mean, as far as like literally saving people, I mean, I know people that have literally been listening to like local hip hop music that were like on the verge of killing themselves.
Yeah.
That kind of came back from that. And I know people like, you know, local MCs' lyrics tattooed on their bodies because that was like the song that saved them.
Saved their life.
And so
literally,
it's like, it's, I mean, it's...
Thinking about suicide prevention again.
Exactly. And so I think that, you know, to somebody that's maybe not involved in the scene, it's maybe harder for them to understand on such a personal level. But I feel like a lot of the people that have kind of come into it, you know, it really can change your life and in a lot of ways save your life.
There's meaning underground.
Right,
which is the title of the the first record in 2010 that came out just after college. I think you were finishing it.
Yeah, I graduated in 2009, and that's when I put out like my first mixtape. It was called Lyrical Combustion. That was like a lo-fi project where I just kind of, you know, rapping over other people's beats, and that was kind of like my first, because I had done stuff prior to that, sort of just like, you know, bullshit that I did when I was in high school, kind of like very cheaply recorded, simple beats produced on like programs that you can, anybody can, you know, use and check out. But like doing that kind of, I started, you know, developing very, very basic skills. And then with that project, that was kind of the first time I felt like, okay, well, this writing, I felt like I kind of came into my own more. There's Meaning Underground was sort of that was the first album that I like pressed up, you know, got in some stores, got online, like on iTunes and whatnot. And then that was sort of when I started doing shows, meeting people. The Chris tapes were sort of, you know, I gave those away for free, but they were basically full albums, and it kind of, that was like a way for me to start collaborating with a lot of people.
Yeah, EQ's Man came with that. You had
it's actually the X-Men. That was
X-Men.
It was like a play off of EQ, like the music term, and then X-Men, like the superhero group. But yeah, so I mean, we you know, there was a lot of things that we did.
Which is a project that you had for a bit.
Yeah, that was a group. Yeah. You know, we never officially disbanded, but it was kind of just like a thing that we did, and then, you know, we kind of were just involved in other things. So I mean, Panache actually is part of the X-Men. He's on the new album.
Yeah. So we've been talking about drive, and a drive that comes through hip hop, through community, through college, but we've also been acknowledging the potentially cyclical nature when you're asking that question, can we get beyond cynicism, or is everything cyclical? That's at odds with this forward movement, this drive. And it's interesting, we've just been taking a journey through your catalogue. It's interesting that it begins with this confident, there's meaning underground, but then kind of slightly at odds with this idea of forward progress, because even within that opening, even within that first project, I think there's a track near the end about, there's a metaphor travelling from dark to light, dawn after, what's it called? Can you remember what it's called?
I'm sorry, on what was song?
Back on There's Meaning Underground. I think the second from final track has the metaphor of moving from darkness to light.
Oh yeah, from daylight to dawn.
Yeah. So then so we have this idea of forward progress, and then that carries through to the new record. But then we also have you referencing that you look not dissimilar to Bill Murray. People highlight this, and that's apt because sometimes you feel like certain days are on repeat. So again,
the Groundhog Day.
Yeah, the Groundhog Day, the cyclical nature of that, and in Lives We Lead, which is primarily, you know, it begins with you addressing a friend who feels lost, or this friend of yours is jogging and they'd like to jog because they feel like they're escaping
away from
their problems.
Yeah.
There you're saying things get kind of blurry sometimes. I don't want to end up blind. So there is this risk of, despite the promise of the forward progress, there are these impediments. To what extent is this? That seems to be an overarching thing throughout the record.
Right.
The conflict between this this desire for a progress narrative and this recognition of what might get in the way.
Yeah,
is that conscious?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's kind of. I just feel like I think that is a good way to maybe sum up the album. Is like, with the new age, it's like I said, this is a new age. I'm trying to. It's like, how do you adapt to this new age? How do you, being 30, political landscape, all that, like, what is next? It's like, not wanting to succumb and just kind of like lose all the progress that you've had and the relationships you've started making, but like, what is the next step? How does that evolve? There's a lot of, I think, people that I know, it's sort of like you feel like you're spinning your wheels and then you... At a certain point, it's like, okay, well, are we going to do this forever, or are we going to try to find something new? Like, I mean, there's a lot of people, musicians, I feel like they do it for a few years, and then either they realize it's not for them, or they just don't have the kind of success they have, and so they settle down and have kids, kind of start a new life away from that. And so for me, it's like, I just feel so driven and dedicated to what I've been doing, a lot of the work that means people have been doing, that it's like, how do we elevate that to the next level? Like, where do we go from here? Like, and even seeing some people that I thought that we were really going to be doing something kind of drift away from that. It's like, do I want to go down the same path that maybe they've gone? Do I want to like get out of this? It's like, I don't want to, but is that inevitable? You know what I mean? So it's like, I think with all these things weighing on my mind, and then all this politics on top of it, it's like, well, how do you navigate all this? Like, what is the best way to live your life with these types of things? So I mean, it's like with Lives We Lead, especially that song. It's like, all this stuff has affected me. But it's unclear what exactly is next. Like, I don't want to just completely lose myself. And I want to find a way forward.
Yeah, you reassure your friends that the heart muscles grow stronger with every struggle in that song, and you were just referring to seeing some people who you thought might be around, being very active in the scene, maybe potential collaborators, people you considered you thought you'd be collaborating with more and more into the future. They get less involved. Not only that, in Adventures in Hip Hop, you referred to decisively breaking away from some people that you didn't need to be working with, and that was a blessing in disguise.
Yep.
Are there any specific, given how there's this consistent emphasis on the full breadth of human experience and kind of honesty, are there any struggles, whether it's through like developing yourself as CMJ, or more personal or more political, that any very specific struggles that have enabled your growth, have led to you being where you are now?
Yeah, I mean, I think the last probably 6 or 7 years since I graduated from college, I guess it's been about 8 years now. After I graduated, it was sort of like, okay, well, what's like, all right, like I've completed all the schooling. You go grade school, high school, college. All right, I've graduated. And I knew when I graduated, it was like, I finally wanted to tackle music, because I couldn't really tackle music the way I would have liked to in college, just because you're so busy and focused on college. Like, shout out to the people that can do all that and juggle all that well. But I just wasn't really able to, going to class, working a day job, it was hard to kind of embrace it the way that I would have liked to. So when I got done with college, it was like, all right, now I'm really going to hit this hard. And I feel like that's what I've been doing since I got done, figuring out how to get into the scene, how to book shows, how to, just networking and all this stuff. And so doing all that, it's like along the way I've met all these people, and so I've kind of been involved in their lives, they've been involved in mine. There's all these, sort of adventures and things that we've done old friends that I've kind of fallen out with because they just don't really fit into this picture now, really, and just fundamental philosophical differences. That kind of goes back to a lot of like the politics again. Like there are people that I don't really associate with anymore because I was not on the same page with them, and it wasn't something that I was trying to really be around. And so I think kind of all that is just, again, leading up to what's been going on in the country and just what's going on in hip hop. It's just sort of like, okay, well, what am I doing? Like, what is the point of this? Where are we going with this? It's like, and I'm still kind of in that. Like, I'm about to put this album out. I don't know exactly what is next.
Yeah.
Really, it's sort of, I'm trying to kind of make these life decisions with finances and people I know and my relationships, and just trying to see like what exactly is the best way forward. And I mean, it really is an ongoing struggle. Like, I feel like, obviously a lot of people say, music can be kind of therapy to try to get it all out there and kind of make sense of it, but it's like, it's still unclear exactly what's next.
That having been said, though, the only way you'll ever see Christopher Walken is if you're into cinema watching.
Yeah.
Which is one of my favorite lyrics on the opening track, Silence into Sound.
And it's funny with that lyric, actually, that was actually I actually had that line written about 8 years ago, and I just never got around to putting it in a song. So that's actually one of the oldest lyrics.
But it holds. So that's from when you're perhaps initially finding the meaning underground.
Yeah, I think even before that album. Yeah, I mean that's actually kind of a poignant way to look at it. I mean, a lot of these things, it's like, things that I've been thinking about for a long time. It's like they're still making their way into the music because it's, all this stuff, it just kind of stays with me. Like, and so it,
despite everything.
Right.
Everything. So yeah, let's kind of close with a little bit more focus on Silence into Sound, which I think is a great opening track.
Yep.
And it's kind of ruminating on the process of artistic production, of having made the record, of having, you've had all of these experiences, and then you turn it into the song Silence into Sound, into the record A New Age. It's got some of it's lyrically really strong, I think. If John Cage could play 4 minutes 33 seconds, I'd bust a cappella out where every rest is. Am I getting that right? Yeah. You should be proud of that one.
Thank you.
So what does this song, and then similarly, if silence is golden, I'm making this platinum.
Yeah.
So recognizing a virtue to silence, hence a reference to the John Cage, which is like just the song of there's no
just
sound.
all rest notes.
Yeah. What are you saying in this record, and perhaps specifically in that song, about nothing into something, silence into sound, about what you're doing?
I think it was just kind of a way of saying, just kind of creating what you want to create, going from, kind of just the artistic process, like, you start obviously from scratch and creating something, and I felt like that was a good way to start the album off. It's like, all right, we're going to build this. This is, obviously it references the name of the album on the song.
Yep.
So it's kind of like,
this is a new age.
it kind of sets the album off right. The way like the song builds, and kind of just just kind of creating art, creating your life, creating what you're trying to do. I mean, I talk a lot about in that song about like the struggles of being an underground artist and trying to make it, and trying to make it in terms of just trying to pay the bills, and and also I kind of talk about the song about hip hop starting in the Bronx, and just kind of how all that's sort of sparked off what I do now. Mm-hmm. So it's just a lot
in
of
the parks, also in Adventures in Hip Hop.
Right, exactly. So I mean, and that's kind of the thing is like I look back at hip hop and the way it started, and just it's really just amazing the way it started, and the way that it even grew from outside of those communities to affect so many people around the world. Somebody, like I said, like a white kid in Minneapolis, it's like the way that this whole scene has developed. I mean, hip hop really is like a miracle in that way. It's like for it to become like the most like dominant, you know, culture, genre, music, art form that's just done so many things, and had such an impact on society and the world at large. I mean, that's.
You look at its beginnings.
I'm sorry, say again.
But then you, it's are you saying then you look back at how it began?
I look back at how it began, just how it's affected me, just to bring me in where we are now. I mean, that's always just, that's something that's like really special to me, is just, you know, you look at hip hop and just kind of going back to all like the artists that I grew up. I mean, what they've provided me with has just been such a gift for what I'm able to do with my life now. Like people that I know, like, I mean, a lot of my whole life wouldn't be what it is without hip hop.
Yeah.
And so I'm really thankful to like the pioneers and the people that helped build it and pave the way, because without them, you know, I wouldn't be able to do what I do now. And that's another thing too, I think, for, you know, a lot of youth doing hip hop now too. It's like, it's important to kind of look at that and kind of contextualize yourself within that. It's like, this has been going on for a long time. It's like, be thankful for what's come before you, try to take from that and then also develop your own artistic voice within that, and try to keep it going on, build your own something new within that, and hopefully inspire other people like you know, hopefully like that you've been inspired. So
yeah,
hopefully, you know, this album, this music can affect somebody like that. That'd be awesome.
Yeah,
I'd be very appreciative of that.
Yeah, becoming hot enough, creating hot enough raps to burn off wax like Icarus did. That's another great lyric, and that's something that you have in common with Sims. If you have the Konami code in common with POS, of course, Sims is the song Icarus.
Oh, yeah.
Vagabond Maurice from Slump Gang 777, he's a member who lives in Minneapolis. He has a record about Icarus too, so it seems like, you know, the idea of being Icarus, like he has wax on his wings, he gets warned not to fly too close to the sun because the wax will melt, and of course he does. What Sims found attractive about that metaphor, symbol, was the idea of, you know, being 100, like everyone's going to die, but I'm going to live, and I'm going to push myself, and I'm going to be Sims. I'm going to be myself.
There's also just a punchline about wax.
Yeah, and of course, yeah, that's the fun. Yeah, that's great. But this,
kind of just some shit talking too.
Yeah,
there.
but your Icarus, like, it's great to see. You know, the silence into sound. The chorus goes, nothing into something, silence into sound. Make a little music. What is it about? I think we've really delved into what your new record is about and what you're about. Part of what you're about is excavating optimism from a nihilist, to quote the next one. Reigniting hope in the hearts even of the weighed down by illusion revolutionaries.
I'd bust an acapella out where every rest is.
Wakening, eliciting the state of being woke in those who have the ostriches with their heads in the sand. All of that's going on, it seems, in this record. I mean, you say, if you want to change, you got to be stronger than your desire to stay the same. So thank you for being stronger than your desire to stay the same through all these years and adapting and evolving. Don't change, don't stay the same.
I appreciate that.
Some combination of those two. We look forward to catching you in your current state.
Thank you.
Icarus-like state.
Yeah, yes.
At Honey.
Yep.
And of course, our opportunity to do so is on Wednesday at Honey. Don't forget to taste the, which kind of burger from Ginger Hop?
The Bruce Lee burger. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, and you'll feel like you're performing at the 7th Street entry of the Amsterdam. It's that good.
Yes.
This is, and listen to the record, you'll get all of those references.
Yes, thanks again for having me.
You're very welcome. Christopher Michael Jensen. I've been Simon Calder. This is Back to the City. Thank you very much for tuning in.
Make vinyl fly off shelves with hot enough raps to burn up wax like Icarus did. Nothing into something, silence into sound. Make a little music, what is it about? Nothing into something, silence into sound. Charting out the next days in the underground. Nothing into something, silence into sound. Everybody's working, reaching for the crown. Nothing into something, silence into sound. This is a new age. This Listen closely between choruses, then words like magic. This contortionist sorcerer's a wordsmith who sculpts verses like pottery, giving you a piece of my mind like a lobotomy. Fuck this economy's cataclysmic, capitalistic conditions that have been dogging me. I'm caught between fostering my skills and expression and how I can properly make bills and investments. Artists take a lot of shit like colostomy bags, testing one's patience like a hospital's labs. It's a talent, finding the right balance, and I'm not willing to walk away from the challenge. The only way you'll ever see Christopher Walken is if you're into cinema watching, because to me it isn't an option. I've come a long way, and now it's a new age.